had a very complex war plan. Three prongs, three parts. First, you have to drive the Mexican forces out of this border region. Then you have to take over New Mexico and California. And finally, to finish the deal off, you have to take Mexico City. Well, by February 1847, this Mexican border had been secured. At the same time, American forces had moved west. General Stephen Watts Kearny had led his troops into New Mexico along the Santa Fe Trail, all the way from Missouri into New Mexico, and he would continue on into California. He pulls into Santa Fe, and the Mexican governor flees. August 16, 1847, Americans captured New Mexico's capital of Santa Fe. Kearny continues west. He is not done. He has to take California. Kearny doesn't make it before a small group of Americans who were living in Sonoma take over and seize Sonoma and declare the independent Republic of California. They said they were going to conquer all of California. Now, this outraged a lot of the Californios, or the Mexicans that were living in California, as you might have guessed, a little bit upset. These people had been their neighbors up until this conflict in June 1846. Now the Navy gets involved. California is on the coast. July 1845, the Navy, 1846, excuse me. The Navy, under Commodore John Sloat, captures Monterey and San Francisco and declares California as annexed to the U.S., which is conflict because in Sonoma it was the independent Republic of California. Anyway, Sloat's fleet sails down to San Diego, captured San Diego, they moved back north. They're just basically going up and down the coast. But after his fleet leaves in San Diego, many Californios rise up against the Americans. That's when General Kearny shows up. He squishes the rebellion, and by January of 1847, California was fully controlled by the United States. Part 1, the border, done. Part 2, taking over New Mexico and California, done. President Polk now launches the third part of his plan, an attack on Mexico City. Winfield Scott was the leader. He had a brilliant campaign to bring the Mexican War to a close. His army landed on the coast of the Gulf of Mexico and fought their entire way to Mexico City, and by August had reached Mexico City. There they were able to overcome Mexican resistance, and by mid-September had taken Mexico City. The Mexican government had surrendered. Final peace treaty began January 1848. It's called the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo. It was signed in February. The terms of the agreement were not very favorable. Mexico gave up all claims to Texas, not very favorable to Mexico. Mexico had to agree to the Rio Grande as the border, not the Nueces, also not very favorable. Mexico had to cede or give the provinces of New Mexico and California to the U.S. Again, not very favorable to Mexico. But the victor in this war, the United States, gave Mexico $15 million for the land that it had just won in the war. In 1853, the United States paid Mexico another $10 million for the Gadsden Purchase, which is a strip of land. You can see it on your expansion map handout that we looked at earlier with the Louisiana Purchase. You can see it all put together. At this point, the United States reaches its present size with the exception of the addition of Hawaii and Alaska. The continental U.S. is at its present size. The total cost of this war. The United States lost roughly 1,700 men in battle. 11,000, though, to disease. 11,000 men to disease. And it cost the United States roughly $100 million. Mexico had greater losses in both battle and disease, greater cost, and most importantly, Mexico lost half of its territory. Now, for a moment, imagine if the United States would have kept Mexico City and all of Mexico. Essentially, that's what Polk had done. He had conquered all of Mexico. When you eliminate somebody's government, you take over their country. But President Polk didn't want all of Mexico. He simply wanted California, New Mexico, and Texas, the lands that Americans were interested in. But think about how different life would